The air inside Nexus Prime's Grand Assembly Hall crackled with tension. Ambassador Talia Rivers stood at the center of the circular chamber, her hands steady despite the hundreds of alien eyes fixed upon her. The space station had been humanity's greatest achievement in interstellar diplomacy, a neutral ground where dozens of species came to settle disputes without bloodshed. Today, that peace hung by a thread. The human colony on Kepler-4 for to be was established legally, Talia declared, her voice echoing through the vast chamber. We have the documents, the territorial agreements, and the blessing of the Galactic Council. A thunderous roar shook the station's hull. General Vextar, the dreaded warlord of the Kraxan Empire, rose from his throne-like seat. Standing nearly 9 feet tall, his scaled purple skin gleamed under the chamber lights. The muscular arms gestured dramatically as he spoke, his voice like grinding stone. Documents. He spat, his translator making his words sound even more menacing. Papers mean nothing when blood has been spilled. My warriors died claiming that world for the Empire. No soft-skinned human should walk on soil watered by Kraxan blood. The chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates from a dozen species began shouting, their various languages creating a cacophony of anger and fear. The aquatic Merlothi clicked their concerns in rapid succession. The insectoid Zilthic buzzed ominously, even the peaceful tree-like. Veldorians swayed with agitation. Talia raised her hand for silence, but Vextar's booming laughter drowned out her voice. Look at her, he sneered to his entourage. She thinks words can stop the inevitable. The Kraxan Empire will take what belongs to us, and no human diplomat can change that. The arrival of the warrior, the chamber's main doors hissed open, and the arguing stopped. Captain Jenna Cross walked in with the confident stride of someone who had faced death countless times and lived to tell about it. Her combat boots clicked against the metal floor in a steady rhythm. She wore simple black fatigues with no decorations, except for a small Earth insignia on her shoulder at 28. Jenna had already earned a reputation as one of humanity's finest warriors. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her green eyes held the sharp focus of a predator. She had fought in the asteroid belt conflicts, survived the harsh training of Earth's special forces, and commanded respect from soldiers across the galaxy. Ambassador Rivers, Jenna said with a slight nod. I came as soon as I received your message. Talia's relief was visible. Captain Cross, thank you for coming. We're facing a difficult situation. Vextar S4 eyes narrowed as he studied the newcomer, another human. What is this? A parade of your species' weakness? Jenna turned to face the massive alien, her expression calm. I'm here to represent humanity's interests, General, nothing more, nothing less. Represent. Vextar S' laugh was like breaking glass. You humans always hide behind words. Where I come from, strength speaks louder than diplomacy. The insult. That changed everything. The tension in the room grew thicker. Jenna could feel the weight of history pressing down on them. This wasn't just about one colony world anymore. This was about humanity's place in the galaxy, their right to exist among the stars. Genero Vextar. Talia tried to intervene. Surely. We can find a peaceful solution to this dispute. Peaceful, Vextar's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. There can be no peace between predator and prey. Your species crawled out of their mud ball of a planet barely a century ago. You have no history, no honor, no strength. You are parasites feeding on the achievements of greater civilizations. The insult hung in the air like a physical blow. Several human delegates gasped, and Jenna felt her jaw tighten. She had heard similar words before, from other species that saw humanity as newcomers to the galactic community. "You speak of honor," Jenna said quietly, "but I see little honor in threatening colonies full of families and children." Vex's expression darkened. "You dare question my honor, human?" "I question your wisdom," Jenna replied. "Starting a war over one world will cost both our species far more than any planet is worth. The challenge issued, what happened next would be recorded in history books across the galaxy." Vexstar descended from his platform, his massive form casting a shadow over Jenna. The other delegates backed away, sensing the danger in the air. "You want to talk about wisdom?" Vexstar's forearms spread wide. "Then let us settle this the old way: combat. Single combat. If your species has any honor at all, you will accept." The chamber fell silent. Even the station's air recyclers seemed to pause. Jenna felt every eye in the room on her, waiting for her response. "What are the terms?" she asked. Vexstar's teeth, sharp as daggers, gleamed in what might have been a smile. "Simple. You and I fight. If you win, the Kraxan Empire will respect your claim to the colony. If I win, your people abandon the world and never return." Talia stepped forward. "Captain Cross, you don't have to do this. We can find another way." But Jenna was already nodding. "I accept." The chamber erupted again, but this time with excitement rather than anger. Challenge duels were ancient tradition in galactic lore, rarely used but always respected. No species could refuse a formal challenge without losing face. "Excellent," Vexstar rumbled. "The fight will take place tomorrow at noon in the Grand Colosseum. All species will witness as I show the galaxy that humans are nothing more than clever animals." The weight of destiny. As the assembly dispersed, Jenna found herself alone with Talia in a small observation lounge overlooking the station's central hub. Through the transparent walls, they could see ships from dozens of worlds docked at the massive structure. "Do you know what you've done?" Talia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've bought us time," Jenna replied, "and maybe saved a war. Or started one. If you lose tomorrow, it won't just be about the colony. Other aggressive species will see it as proof that humans are weak. They'll unite against us." Jenna nodded. She understood the stakes better than anyone. "And if I win, if you win, you'll have done something no human has ever done before. You'll have defeated a Kraxan warlord in single combat. It might change how the entire galaxy sees us." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel slowly past the station's viewports. Jenna thought about the colony on Kepler-4 for to be, about the families who had left Earth to build new lives among the stars. They deserved better than to be pawns in galactic politics. "What do you know about Vexstar?" Jenna asked. "He's never been defeated in combat. 43 victories, all of them decisive. He's killed opponents with his bare hands, and he's said to be one of the strongest warriors in Kraxan history." "Everyone has a weakness," Jenna said. "I just have to find his." The night before, that evening, Jenna made her way to the station's training facilities. The gravity could be adjusted to match different worlds, and she set it to Kraxan standard, nearly twice Earth's pull. Her muscles strained as she went through her exercises, but she pushed through the discomfort. As she practiced her combat forms, she thought about the challenge ahead. Vexstar was bigger, stronger, and more experienced. In a straight fight, she would lose. But Jenna had never won her battles through brute force alone. She won through intelligence, adaptability, and the refusal to give up the training rooms. Door chimed, and she turned to see a figure in the shadows. It was tall and slender, clearly not human. As it stepped into the light, Jenna saw it was a young Kraxan female. Her scales a lighter shade of purple than Vexstar S. "You should not be here," the alien said, in accented but clear English. "Neither should you," Jenna replied, not lowering her guard. The young Kraxan smiled, showing teeth that were sharp but somehow less threatening than her father's. "I am Princess Nixara. Vexstar is my father." Jenna felt her muscles tense. "If you're here to threaten me, I am here to warn you," Nixara interrupted. "My father has never lost because he fights without honor. He will try to kill you, even though the challenge is supposed to be non-lethal. Why are you telling me this?" The princess looked out through the training room's viewport at the stars beyond. "Because I have seen what happens when my father's pride is wounded. Entire worlds burn. If you lose tomorrow, he will not stop with your colony. He will wage war against humanity until your species is extinct." Jenna absorbed this information. "And if I win?" "If you win, you will have done something impossible. You will have shown that strength comes in many forms, not just size and brutality." The two women stood facing each other, representatives of species that had never truly understood one another. In that moment, Jenna realized that tomorrow's fight wasn't just about politics or territory. It was about proving that different didn't mean inferior, that intelligence could triumph over brute force, and that the galaxy was big enough for all species to coexist. "Thank you for the warning," Jenna said. Nixara nodded and moved toward the door. "Good luck, Captain Cross. The galaxy's future may depend on what happens in the next 10 seconds of your life." As the princess left, Jenna returned to her training. She had less than 12 hours to prepare for the most important fight in human history. She intended to make every second count. The Mentor's wisdom dawn came early aboard Nexus Prime, the station's artificial day cycle beginning with a soft golden glow that gradually brightened throughout the corridors. Jenna woke before her alarm, her body already preparing for the challenge. Ahead, she had slept poorly, her mind racing through possible strategies and outcomes. A soft chime at her door interrupted her morning routine. She opened it to find Colonel Ben Harrison, her former commanding officer and the man who had trained her in the art of combat. His weathered face showed concern, but his eyes held the same fierce determination that had made him a legend in Earth's. "Military Jenna," he said, stepping into her quarters. "I came as soon as I heard about the challenge." "Colonel," she replied, genuine warmth in her voice. "I'm glad you're here." Ben looked her over with the critical eye of someone who had seen countless warriors prepare for battle. "You look ready, but looking ready and being ready are different things. Tell me your plan." Jenna gestured to the tactical display on her room's wall, where she had been studying footage of Vexstar's previous fights. "He's powerful, but he relies on intimidation and overwhelming force. He expects his opponents to be afraid, and you're not afraid." "Terrified," Jenna admitted. "But fear can be useful if you channel it properly." Ben nodded approvingly. "Fear keeps you alive. Overconfidence gets you killed. What else have you learned?" "He has 4 arms, but he doesn't use them as efficiently as he could. He tends to lead with his upper right arm, and his lower left is slightly favored for defensive moves. He's also used to fighting opponents who match his size and strength." "Good observations. But remember, intelligence alone won't win this fight. You need to be faster, smarter, and more adaptable than you've ever been." The scientist's discovery while Jenna worked with Colonel Harrison. Across the station in the research labs, Dr. Zephyrin was conducting his own investigation. The elderly scientist belonged to the Veldorian species, his tree-like body moving with the slow, deliberate grace of his kind. His bark-like skin was covered in intricate patterns that shifted color with his emotions. Currently showing deep concentration, Zephyrin had been studying combat recordings from across the galaxy, not for entertainment, but for science. He believed that understanding how different species fought could lead to better cooperation and fewer conflicts. When he heard about the challenge, he knew he had to help. Fascinating, he murmured to himself, his voice like wind through leaves. The Kraxan fighting style is based on their hunting patterns. They corner their prey, then strike with overwhelming force. His research assistant, a young human named Dr. Patricia Wells, looked up from her datapad. "Are you thinking of helping Captain Cross?" "I am thinking of helping both species avoid a war," Zephyrin replied. This challenge could change everything. He pulled up a holographic display showing the anatomy of a Kraxan warrior. "Look here, Patricia. They are incredibly strong, but their size creates certain limitations. Their nervous system takes longer to process information from all four limbs simultaneously." "You mean there's a delay?" "A tiny one, measured in milliseconds. But in combat, milliseconds can mean the difference between victory and defeat." The princess's secret meanwhile. Princess Nixara made her way through the station's diplomatic quarter, her mind heavy with the weight of her people's future. She had not slept after her encounter with Captain Cross, instead spending the night researching human culture and military history. What she found surprised her. Humans were not the weak, cowardly species her father believed them to be. They were adaptable, innovative, and capable of extraordinary courage when faced with impossible odds. Their history was filled with examples of smaller forces defeating larger ones through superior tactics and unwavering determination. She found herself in the station's memorial garden, a peaceful space where representatives from all species came to honor their fallen. The garden was filled with plants from hundreds of worlds, creating a living testament to the galaxy's diversity. "You seem troubled, Princess." Nixara turned to find Ambassador Talia Rivers approaching, her diplomatic instincts clearly picking up on the young Kraxan's distress. "I am," Nixara admitted. "Tomorrow's fight will change everything, but I fear my father does not understand what he has set in motion." "What do you mean? If Captain Cross loses, my father will see it as proof that humans are weak. He will use it to justify aggression against your species. But if she wins," the princess paused, her scales shifting to a deeper purple. "If she wins, it will challenge everything my people believe about strength and honor." Talia sat on a nearby bench, gesturing for Nixara to join her. "Change is never easy, but sometimes it's necessary. My people have ruled through fear for so long that we have forgotten what it means to be truly strong. We have conquered worlds, but we have never built anything lasting. We have never created beauty or art or literature. We only know how to destroy. It's not too late to change, isn't it?" Nixara's voice carried centuries of her people's pain. "How do you teach a warrior species to be something other than warriors?" The final preparations as the hours counted down to the challenge. Jenna found herself in the station's observation deck, looking out at the stars. The Grand Colosseum was visible in the distance, a massive structure that could hold representatives from every species in the galaxy. Dr. Zephyrin approached, his movements careful and deliberate. "Captain Cross, I hope you will forgive the intrusion, but I have information that may be useful." "Any help is welcome." The Veldorian scientist activated a small holographic projector, showing a detailed analysis of Kraxan physiology. Your opponent's strength is also his weakness. His nervous system cannot process information from all four limbs as quickly as a human brain can adapt to new situations. You're saying I have a reaction time advantage, not just reaction time, but adaptability. Kraxans are trained to follow specific combat patterns. They are predictable in their unpredictability, if you understand the paradox. Jenna studied the display, her mind racing through the implications. They're used to opponents who fight like they do. Exactly, they expect certain responses to certain attacks. If you can break their pattern, you can create an opening. The gathering storm as noon approached, the grand Colosseum filled with spectators. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy had come to witness the challenge. The betting was fierce, with odds heavily favoring Vextor. Few believed a human could defeat a Kraxan warlord in single combat in the preparation chambers. Beneath the arena, Jenna went through her final checks. Her equipment was simple: basic combat gear, lightweight armor, and her trusted combat knife. She had refused the offer of advanced weapons, knowing that Vextar would see them as a sign of weakness. Colonel Harrison stood with her, his presence a calming influence. "Remember everything we've taught you," he said. "Speed over strength. Intelligence over brute force. I remember, and remember that you're not just fighting for yourself or even for humanity. You're fighting for the idea that different species can coexist in this galaxy without one having to dominate the others." On the other side of the arena, Vextar was making his own preparations. The massive warlord wore traditional Kraxan battle armor, its surface covered in the markings of his victories. His four arms moved through combat forms with lethal precision, each movement calculated to intimidate and destroy. Princess Nixara watched her father with growing concern. She had never seen him so focused, so determined to prove his superiority. She feared that his pride had blinded him to the true nature of the challenge he faced. The march to destiny as the time for the challenge arrived. Both fighters made their way to the arena floor. The crowd fell silent as they entered, the weight of history pressing down on everyone present. This was not just entertainment. It was a moment that would define the future of galactic civilization. Jenna walked with measured steps, her breathing controlled and steady. She could feel the eyes of thousands upon her, but she blocked out the distractions. In her mind, there was only the fight ahead and the techniques she had spent years perfecting. Vextar strutted into the arena with the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. His forearms were spread wide, acknowledging the crowd's mixture of cheers and concerned murmurs. He stopped at the center of the arena and turned to face his opponent. "Last chance to surrender, human," he called out, his voice amplified by the arena's acoustics. "I offer you the honor of a quick death." Jenna stopped 10 feet away from him, her stance relaxed but ready. "I didn't come here to surrender." The arena's referee, a neutral crystalline being whose species had no stake in the outcome, stepped forward. "The challenge is accepted. Combat will continue until one fighter yields or is unable to continue. Are both fighters ready?" "Ready," Jenna replied. "Ready," Vextar growled. The referee raised his crystalline arm, and the arena fell completely silent. In the stands, Ambassador Talia Rivers held her breath. Colonel Harrison watched with the intensity of a man whose student was about to face the greatest test of her life. Princess Nixara closed her eyes, unable to watch what she feared would be her father's most brutal victory. Let the challenge begin." The referee's arm dropped, and in that instant, the fate of two species hung in the balance. The next 10 seconds would determine whether humanity would be seen as equals in the galactic community, or as prey to be hunted by stronger predators. Jenna. Cross took a deep breath and prepared to fight for the future of her species. The first second, the charged the arena exploded into motion as Vexter launched himself forward with the fury of a living avalanche. His 4 massive arms spread wide, creating a wall of muscle and death that had overwhelmed 43 previous opponents. The crowd gasped as his feet pounded against the arena floor, each step creating small tremors that could be felt in the furthest seats. Jenna stood perfectly still, her green eyes locked on the approaching Warlord. In her mind, time seemed to slow as her training took over. She could see the slight favoring of his upper right arm that she had noticed in the recordings, the way his lower left arm pulled back slightly for a defensive position. Most importantly, she could see the confidence in his eyes, the absolute certainty that this fight would end like all the others. That confidence would be his downfall at the last possible moment. As Vexter's massive form filled her vision, Jenna moved. Not backward, not to the side, but forward and down. She dropped into a slide that carried her beneath his reaching arms, her small frame slipping through the gap between his legs like water through a net. The second, the surprise of Vexter's eyes widened in shock as his opponent vanished from in front of him. His 4 arms, committed to a devastating attack, found only empty air. His momentum carried him forward, and for the first time in his life, he felt the alien sensation of missing his target completely. Behind him, Jenna completed her slide and rolled to her feet in one fluid motion. The crowd roared their astonishment, but she blocked out the noise. She had perhaps 2 seconds before Vexter could turn around and react. She had to make them count. Drawing her combat knife, she leaped onto the massive alien's back, her lightweight frame making no sound as she landed. Vexter began to turn, his 4 arms reaching back to grab her. But she was already moving again. The second, the lesson instead of trying to harm Vexter. Jenna did something that stunned everyone watching. She pressed the flat of her blade against his throat, not to cut, but to demonstrate. The cold metal against his scales was a message clearer than any words. "I could have killed you just now. Do you yield?" She whispered, her voice barely audible over the crowd's roar. Vexter's response was a wordless bellow of rage. He spun with surprising speed, his 4 arms working in coordination to grab and crush the human who had dared to touch him. But Jenna was no longer there. She had leaped away, landing softly on the arena floor several feet away. The 4th second, the dance what followed was a display of combat, artistry that would be studied for generations. Vexter attacked with renewed fury, his 4 arms moving in complex patterns designed to corner and overwhelm his opponent. Each blow had enough force to shatter stone, but none of them found their target. Jenna moved like a ghost through his attacks, her body bending and flowing around his strikes. She had studied not just his recordings, but the recordings of every Kraxan warrior she could find. She understood their patterns, their preferences, their instincts. More importantly, she understood their weaknesses. The 5th second, the realization in the stands. Princess Nixara watched in fascination as the human warrior demonstrated something her species had never truly understood. That strength was not just about size and power. Captain Cross was not trying to match her father's strength. She was using his strength against him. Each time Vexstar committed to a powerful attack, Jenna would redirect his momentum, causing him to overextend or lose his balance. She was fighting, like water against stone, flowing around his attacks while slowly wearing him down. Ambassador Talia Rivers found herself gripping the edge of her seat. This was not the brutal slugfest she had expected. This was a masterclass in tactical combat, a demonstration of human ingenuity and adaptability that was changing how every species in the audience viewed humanity. The 6th second, the frustration Vextor's attacks became more desperate as he realized he was not fighting the weak, cowardly human he had expected. This warrior was skilled, disciplined, and completely unafraid of him. For the first time in his life, he felt the cold touch of uncertainty. His forearms began to work less efficiently as frustration clouded his judgment. The precise coordination that had made him unstoppable began to break down. He was fighting like an angry beast rather than a trained warrior, and Jenna was taking advantage of every mistake. The 7th second, the opening Dar Zephyrin-S research proved accurate. As Vexstar's attacks became more frantic, the delay between his brain and his limbs became more pronounced. He threw a devastating four-armed combination that should have been impossible to avoid. But Jenna had already seen the pattern. She ducked under his upper arms, stepped past his lower left, and for a moment found herself in the perfect position. Vexstar's entire right side was exposed, his balance compromised by the force of his own attack. It was an opening that would last for perhaps half a second. Jenna took it. The 8th second, the strike. What happened next defied everything the galaxy thought it knew about combat. Instead of delivering a killing blow, Jenna demonstrated the principle that had guided her entire life, that true strength came from knowing when not to use your power. She struck Vextor's nerve cluster at the base of his neck, a precise blow that would temporarily paralyze his upper arms without causing permanent damage. At the same time, she swept his legs, using his own momentum to bring the massive Warlord crashing to the arena floor. The impact shook the entire Colosseum. The 9th second, the choice Vexstar lay on his back, his upper arms limp, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Above him, Jenna stood with her knife pointed at his throat. The crowd held its breath, waiting for the killing blow that would end the challenge. But Jenna had not come here to kill. She had come to prove a point. "Do you yield?" she asked again, her voice carrying clearly through the silent arena. Vextor's eyes burned with fury, but beneath the anger, she could see something else: respect. He had been defeated not by treachery or luck, but by superior skill and strategy. Everything he had believed about humans, about strength, about combat itself, lay shattered around him. The 10th second, the revolution. "I yield," Vextor whispered, his voice barely audible. But Jenna was not finished. In a move that shocked everyone watching, she stepped back and offered her hand to help him up. The gesture was simple, but its meaning was profound. She was not just defeating him, she was offering him dignity in defeat. Vexstar stared at the offered hand for a long moment, then slowly reached up to take it. As Jenna helped the massive Warlord to his feet, something fundamental shifted in the galaxy's understanding of what it meant to be strong. The aftermath, a new dawn, the crowd erupted in a roar that could be heard throughout the station. But this was not the bloodthirsty cheer they had expected to give. This was something entirely new: respect for a warrior who had won through skill rather than brutality, who had shown mercy to a defeated opponent, who had demonstrated that true strength came from lifting others up rather than crushing them. Down in the stands, Princess Nixara felt tears streaming down her face. She had just witnessed the birth of a new era for her species, one where honor meant more than conquest, where strength meant more than destruction. Ambassador Talia Rivas could barely contain her emotions. In 10 seconds, Captain Cross had not just saved a colony world, she had potentially saved humanity's future in the galaxy. The implications of what had just happened would ripple through interstellar politics for generations. The declaration, as the crowd slowly quieted, Vexstar stood tall despite his defeat. His voice, when he spoke, carried the weight of centuries of tradition being transformed. I, General Vexstar of the Kraxan Empire, acknowledge my defeat, he announced. The human colony on Kepler-4 for 2B will remain under human control, as agreed. But then he said something that no one had expected. Furthermore, I declare that any species that seeks to harm humanity will face the wrath of the Kraxan Empire. Captain Cross has shown me that strength comes in many forms, and I would be honored to call humans our allies. The arena fell silent again, but this time it was the silence of awe rather than anticipation. In 10 seconds, a single human warrior had not just won a fight. She had changed the course of galactic history. The new alliance, as the crowds dispersed and the combatants left the arena, the real work began. Princess Nixara approached Jenna with a proposal that would have been unthinkable just hours before. A formal alliance between humanity and the Kraxan Empire. My people have much to learn from yours, she said, and perhaps we have something to teach as well. Jenna, exhausted but triumphant, managed a smile. I think that's exactly what the galaxy needs. More of different species, learning from each other instead of fighting. The legacy years later, historians would mark the 10-second fight between Captain Jenna Cross and General Vexstar as the moment when the galaxy truly began to change. It was the moment when strength was redefined, when honor was restored, and when the possibility of genuine cooperation between species became real. The colony on Kepler-4 to be thrived, becoming a symbol of what humans could achieve when given the chance. The Kraxan Empire, guided by Princess Nixara's wisdom and her father's newfound respect for other species, became a force for protection rather than conquest. And in the archives of Nexus Prime, a recording of those 10 seconds was preserved for future generations, a reminder that sometimes the greatest victories come not from the strength of our arms, but from the courage of our hearts and the wisdom to know when mercy is stronger than might. The galaxy had learned that day that true warriors fight not just to win, but to build a better future for all. And in that lesson, a new era of peace and cooperation had begun.